Right, now then everyone, what you're looking at there is the Ganzo 711, another Benchmade rip-off from China. But this particular one does have an inherent problem, and it seems to be the fact that it's not just a one-off, because I think it's a design fault rather than an assembly fault. The situation is this: obviously it's an axis lock, and you would expect it to be locked in that situation, but if you tap it gently against your hand, you can easily overcome the lock. See what I mean? Even if you flick it out hard, you can actually... Right, so that's ridiculous. So the problem is, watch the access lock as it engages. Tiny amount. It's ridiculous. So it's not really locking up much on that back taper there. It needs to either go further up, or there needs to be more material on the back of that knife blank. That's what leads me to believe it's a design error, because there's no need for the slot to be there. It should be this whole mechanism should really be a few millimeters further up towards the pivot, I think, because there's certainly plenty of room for the lock to come back, and it's not really using that space at the back there. So I think that's the problem. So like I say, yeah, even if you lock it out nice and tight, you can easily knock it off with your hand, so that's no good. So it's going to have to come apart, I think. So let's... what I'm going to be using is a T6 and a T8 Torx drive screwdrivers, and I'm going to have to whip basically the pivot screw out. Right, so in this case I'm only going to slacken the pivot pin. I've removed the two pivot pin screws, and I'm going to take the pivot pin out sufficient enough so I can get just the blade out. So there we go, there she is, there's the blade, the mechanism is still intact. Pins there. Right, so what I think basically the problem is, if I can illustrate this with rather crudely with a pen, is this section here is obviously where the if that goes around like that, I believe the axis lock pin is about here on locking, and I think it should be much further up. So what I'm going to have to do is try and remove some of this material very, very slightly by just grinding it. And that will be at the top, at the back surface here. I'm just going to grind a little bit off very, very slightly. If I go too far, I'm going to completely screw the knife up. So that's not really what I want to do. Right, it's taken some, well, I think 3 or 4 goes. It's quite boring actually, but it was worth it not overdoing it in the first place, just to not risk ruining the knife. So basically now I've ground enough off so that will now move a considerable 1.5 millimeters, I would say, rather than the 1/3 of a mil it was. So it's not absolutely awesome, but it's certainly locking up in such a way that I cannot bounce it closed now by whacking the back. So I'm quite reasonably happy with that. It's a shame that if the situation is like this with all the knives, that's what's going to have to happen. You know, basically the crack is, don't buy this knife unless you've got some tools and you're prepared to mess around with it, otherwise it's going to be a bit dangerous. And that's the situation really. But it is a gorgeous knife, so I wouldn't really let that put it off, let that put you off it, because for the price, $18 or whatever it is, or $20, $20, something like that, I think it's about 11-12 quid. something of the sorts. It's certainly worth it still, even though you have to do this work to it. But now there's a positive movement on the axis lock, which is a bit better, so I'm reasonably happy with being confident enough to stab with it now. So I wasn't really happy carrying it really until I've done this. I've had it for about a week and a half or so now, but I do love this knife. But now I can actually continue on with a proper review. Excellent. Right, so now then, the review. There's a nice green background, that's pretty cool. So the Ganzo 711. I basically got this from xduct.com again, it's that place in China. I would advise you to be careful buying stuff if you're in the UK from there. I'll go into that in another video actually, because there was a bit of a situation involving this knife being seized at customs, but like I say, that's a different video. But this knife, the reason I bought this knife was purely on looks really. I didn't actually know that it was a bench-made copy, which apparently it is, which is rather cool. I'll bring up there's the bench-made there. But you can see the difference in clip on the Benchmade. So the Benchmade clip extends right the way, and I think is actually more ugly to a certain extent. I believe this clip's actually on the Ganzo is a nicer clip, but it's a non-reversible clip, and the liners are not skeletonized. It's quite a beefy, heavy knife, I suppose, but it's reasonably balanced. By that I mean the index finger choil is a reasonable point of balance, like it should be on a knife, so that's not too bad. The axis lock is the only unfortunate problem, in that you have to mess around with it to get it to lock up a little bit more. But I'm happy with it now. But that does have to mark it down on points. There's no two ways about it. Quite a few people are a bit disappointed with large, wide knives when they get them in the pocket because of the bulk, and I mean the dimension this way. I actually quite like that because it gives your fingers another area to open it. You know, it gives you more options of how to open the knife. So no, I'm reasonably happy with that. So it doesn't bother me having something really bulky in the pocket, because you know it's going to provide you with capability and balance. So that doesn't bother me at all. But the scales on these, the handle scales, nicely rounded, very comfortable indeed, I would say, with regards to the shape. When I first got it, it was very slightly square on the corners, so I have given them a bit of a buff with some sandpaper just to give the corners a little bit of rounding off. So that alone, as well as the issue with the axis lock, does mark this down quite considerably. Although I love this knife now, it does score rather badly because of those problems. So yeah, I mean, I suppose if you consider the fact that it's a dangerous knife when you first get it, and if somebody doesn't realise that that's not locking up sufficiently and goes straight ahead and starts stabbing into wood, there's a reasonable chance it's going to close up on them. And these actually, of recent, all these X-Duct knives have actually started coming very sharp indeed. So they appear to be machine stropped actually. When I first got this, it was able to pop the hairs off my arm, so that's not too bad. Normally expect completely rubbish edges with the but they've actually sorted things out actually with the past few years. I think knives from China are starting to come really sharp, particularly the Ganzo and the SRM knives, most of what's available from X-Duct, to be honest.